At the back of yesterday's interview with SchoolDays, the CEO, they're warning of a shortage of teachers to come in years to come. Basic Education, wishing to respond to the caution. We're joined by Basic Education spokesperson Elijah Mhlanga. Mr. Mhlanga, thank you for being with us. The basis of this is really worrying research from the University of Stellenbosch, saying that over the next 10 years, no less than half of all teachers in South Africa will retire because of the demographics. They're generally older. Do you dispute any of that research? Let's start there.
Compliments, Francis, and good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Well, that report is actually puzzling because 10 years ago, I remember so vividly that it was predicted that in 10 years' time, there was going to be a huge shortage and there was going to be a crisis because half of the teachers were going to be retiring. We are exactly at that point, that 10 years that was predicted. Instead of us seeing that crisis, we are seeing another prediction going to another 10 years into the future. So I'm asking myself, what is really going on here and what are they looking at? Because the data that we have does show and confirm that we actually have an oversupply of teachers, and it will continue to be so in terms of the trends that we are reading, and we don't anticipate that there will be a shortage as predicted by the research.
All right, so you're denying this. It's quite incredible that you're saying the research, which they say is categorically, is fundamentally wrong. Have you looked at the demographics of those teachers? So there's an oversupply. Have you made certain that they're not of an age where they are nearing retirement, where this scenario could play out?
Francis, the teachers that we're talking about are the people that we are paying every month. We have their profiles. Even in the last 10 years, at the time when this shortage was predicted, we did research and it was confirmed that indeed a large majority of them are between the ages of 45 and 55, which means that they will be retiring at some point. And we put measures in place as far back as 2007, when we established what is called now the Funza Lushaka Bursary Program. It is used to recruit teachers who are allocated spaces in areas of need in the system. Through just that one project, we're able to see an increase in the number of teachers. I'll give you an example. In 2016, the system, the higher education system, saw 23,500 graduates. And in 2017, there were 25,000 graduates. And in 2019, there were 28,000 graduates. In 2020, we had 31,300 teachers who graduated. Now, that is the number of teachers that we see coming out of education institutions every year. But how many are leaving the system through retirement, through resignation, through death, and other forms of terminations? It's about 15,000. The year that had the highest number of teachers leaving the system was 2019, when it was 19,100 teachers who left. After that, the number dropped to 15,000. So even with that number of 19,000, you still have more teachers graduating than those that are leaving the system. And that trend is continuing. So we are seeing more teachers that are graduating than teachers that are leaving the system.
Okay, but you're talking about graduating figures. The CEO who joined us yesterday of SchoolDays was saying so many are graduating, but you're not able to offer them all positions. So he was saying that that's quite a low percentage. It should be bigger. I mean, you're not hiring everybody who graduates, correct?
That would be impossible to do. In fact, it's just, I don't understand how that conclusion should be made that we must be hiring everyone. That's not what we're supposed to do. We hire as per the posts that are available as budgeted for in that current year. So what I'm saying is that, remember, the topic and the heading says there's going to be a shortage. So I'm saying categorically clear that there is no shortage.
Yeah.
So we deal with that part. Now, so let's come to the hiring. So when we come to the higher, from that pool that is there, that's available, the 31,000 that are there that are available, the system is able to employ and fill the positions that became vacant because of retirement, death, and change of career, and whatever else that people go and do after teaching. Even with that, we also have yet another initiative through which we recruit teachers that are qualified but not in teaching. to come to the system. So we're able to recruit where we have teachers. The issue here is whether we have enough money to employ all the teachers. The truth is that we don't, but we have enough graduates from whom we can employ people to fill the space that we can vacate. And in any organization at any given time, somebody is leaving on any day. So this notion that all of these teachers who are 45 and 50 years are going to leave in one day is not true. I have lived enough in the system in the 10 years to see exactly the trend that they are talking about. And we waited in anticipation to see that massive exodus, which never happened.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Why is it that we are not seeing that shortage now? Instead, they are throwing forward to another 10 years, predicting another challenge, when in fact the numbers are saying that we have enough teachers. All that we need is more money. And we know, I mean, the economy is not doing well. We're not able to employ everyone. In fact, we have people who are desperate for their first opportunity to teach. So there's enough to employ.
But Mr. Mhlanga, some people would say that education is in crisis if we look at it now. And the average, I mean, you can confirm this, according to SchoolDays, is one teacher for 30 people in a classroom. So some schools, obviously, it's much higher than that. We know in Gauteng, there really are teachers struggling with huge classrooms, and then educational outcomes are affected. So some would say that that's pretty bad already. Are you saying that because you the rate of hiring, you say, will match the people leaving the system, so we're not going to see that ratio go up dramatically in future? Is that what you're committing to?
Well, the first error is to look at the whole country through the eyes of Gauteng. We can't do that. We cannot use Gauteng.
They said the national average was 30. Does that match up with what you know?
I'm saying that if we were to look at what is taking place in Gauteng and then make a conclusion, that's wrong, because when we go to rally race, we find that in some schools, the numbers are not matching. I mean, we were now in Mhlanga, where we're looking at enrollment figures. Some schools should be closed down because there are no learners there. The learners are migrating to the urban centers. So the urban centers are giving a wrong picture. Yes, in the urban centers, mostly in Gauteng and Western Cape, and in other provinces as well, in the cities, you find a huge influx of learners resulting in overcrowding. But other schools in other parts of the country are half empty. So that is a different solution altogether that we need to try to keep people where they are, so that we're able to keep those schools running there. But what you have are some schools that are even struggling to attract the right numbers for us to be able to give them the number of teachers that they deserve. Instead, you have overcrowding in a school which cannot be expanded, overcrowding in a school which you cannot employ more teachers because there's no physical space to accommodate everyone there. So what you need is to build a school somewhere else. But if you want to talk about Gauteng, for you to build a school, you need to find land. And right now, we are now seeing an expansion of existing schools in the land which they already have.
All right, so let's put Gauteng aside. If the national average is one teacher to 30 kids in a class, what I'm saying, can you assure us that that average, that national average, won't go up dramatically in coming years because you are hiring enough teachers, like you say, to account for those who are retiring or will retire?
No, that number you're talking about is the allocation now. When we say in a class there has to be 30 learners. Yes, in some cases you have less learners. In other cases you have schools that have more than 30 learners in a classroom. So what do you do in that environment? You expand the school. We are seeing the expansion of schools. We know that there are more by classrooms in some cases. It is because of that high enrollment in a particular school. So yes, the regulated number is 1:30. But of course, it is not necessarily the truth because of the realities of our country, where you see unemployment driving people from their own places to other areas. You have a situation in the Eastern Cape, for example, where between 2011 and 2019, we built lots of schools, beautiful schools, large schools, because of the numbers that were there. But there's no one now in those schools. So we build schools which now have low enrollment rates because people have moved either to the Western Cape or to Gauteng or even KZN. So that's what we are having as well. So the country and the movement of people due to employment opportunities that they are seeing in the cities is also changing the landscape somewhat. So as a country, as a government, we need a different plan in terms of how we manage migration inside the country, never mind the people who are coming from outside South Africa.
Yeah, and many people living in townships in urban areas under crowded conditions, never mind the schools being crowded. Let's end with this. So you categorically saying the research seems to be wrong, there is going to be no shortage. Is there going to be a shortage in science and maths and things like that? How are you coping with finding teachers in those critical subjects right now?
Yeah, you're asking a good question. The same fear was raised with us about 7-8 years ago, and as a result of that, the minister appointed a ministerial task team, which she said, among other things, they need to find out how many maths and science teachers we have and what can be done to sort out that matter. So what was done was to establish a maths and science and technology unit at the Department of Basic Education, which, among other things, went out to recruit teachers and also sought assistance from other countries such as Cuba, who came through to develop maths, science and technology, teaching material, and also recruited other teachers who are qualified but not in teaching to come back to the profession to teach. So we have also revised the conditions in the Funza Shaka Bursary scheme to say if you want to apply, you need to be able to qualify, meet the criteria to teach mathematics, science and technology. So we've seen an increase in the number of teachers in that regard. So all of these matters that the research is raising are issues, exactly the same issues which were raised more than 10 years ago, which the department actually took steps to address. That's why now we're seeing the numbers increasing. And I'm talking about statistics that are given by the Department of Higher Education and Training based on data collected from universities. So in that regard, there's absolutely no crisis.
All right, thank you. Basic Education spokesperson Elijah Mhlanga.